Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be going over the latest and greatest on the Ivy League presidents and how they're handling their crisis of anti-Semitism on campus. I'm doing a simulcast on X's or X Spaces, and let's begin here. But I'm also going to be watching in the background Al Jazeera just to see what's going on with the latest and greatest in the Middle East. So what we want to do is we want to okay. What we want to do is take a look at Fox News. I'm going to be playing a bunch of different videos, especially Alan Dershowitz and his comments. And if I can find the clip, I want to also play Mark Levine's comments. So this first clip is going to be Jewish student says this elite college is looking the other way in hate crimes. And I'll give you my commentary as we're playing these different videos, you know. All right, here we go.
We are seeing on UC campuses violence and a failure to respond to the violence we are seeing. And when there's a gap like that between an incident, the targeted group of students that's affected, and whether or not the university is enforcing policy in place, when they're not enforcing it, that to me is discrimination. My concern as a Jewish student is that the UC Board of Regents, the chancellors, and administration at large, I don't know if they understand why Jewish students on UC campuses are not okay right now. So we've seen acknowledgement from the university leadership saying, we hear you and we see you. But why students are not okay? This is not about First Amendment rights, free speech, nor is it about stifling speech. This is about the fact that when there are issues and incidents affecting Jewish students on campus, I am not seeing the university enforce the policies in place. So we've had 2 Jewish students physically assaulted on campus when expressing their Jewish identity via holding an Israeli flag to convey their national origin, which, as you may know, is a protected trait under Title VI. So right now, the university and UCPD, they've not declared those hate crimes. More importantly, though, they're not even investigating those crimes as hate crimes. So that is problematic because as a Jewish woman, I interpret that as if I express my Jewish identity on campus as it relates to my connection to the Jewish homeland, the Jewish state of Israel, if I am physically assaulted or attacked, the university will not even investigate that as a hate crime. And that tells me I'm not safe to fully express my Jewish identity on campus. What matters is that Jewish students were intimidated and they were aggressively approached and their personal property was attempted to be taken and they were verbally harassed because of an item they were carrying to convey and express their Jewish identity. So whether it was a t-shirt they're wearing to express their identity and they're attacked, a backpack, whether it's another object that they're holding, what matters is that they were doing something to express a protected characteristic of theirs, their Jewish identity, and that would qualify, I believe, as a hate crime because they were targeted based on a protected characteristic. However, the university is not investigating it as a hate crime.
See, here's the problem. Here's the problem at these universities, and it's not just the elite. I think it's across, across America, right? Even at the state school level, they're really pushing CRT, critical race theory, and protected classes, or protected groups, like blacks and immigrants and homosexuals, and there's these different groups that they're protecting, but other groups are not, because what the bottom line is that with critical race theory, they're trying to uh, uh, delegitimize whites, especially white males, and they throw Jews in that category, in the white category. So this is why I keep on saying, if you think that this is not going to come to the Christians, you're not awake on this. This thing goes very deep, and it's about changing the emotional composition of the United States in terms of how we look at families, how we look at our society, through critical race theory. If you get enough people buying into it, you'll get reparations. So it's a con job, that what's really going on. The side issue here is that there are other groups that are not protected under this critical race theory, and that's a big issue. So there's going to be investigations that take place in these schools. Are there biases within their policies, or the policy is right, but it's not being followed by the administration of these schools? And I'm willing to bet that what you'll notice when you do a deep dive, it's about critical race theory and how they're trying to change the composition of the United States in terms of economics. They don't want capitalism, they want socialism. That in terms of the family unit, they don't want a strong family unit. They don't want people to follow religion. So, the thing is that people that think they understand what Zionism is, most people don't understand what Zionism is. Actually, Zionism is a mechanism to actually have less Jewish observance. Zionism was about the secularization of the Jewish people. The other component is like, well, there's a Jewish state. There's a home for the Jews. But if you look at its construction, it was all about the secularization of the Jewish people, which basically means water down the religion. And when you water down the religion, then the Dome of the Rock stays up on the Temple Mount. When you water down the religion of the Jewish people, then the borders don't go back to the time of the covenant, what's written down in the Bible. There's an orchestrated effort. Liberalism doesn't want to remember or have people remember that there was a covenant. They want to whitewash it. Same thing with critical race theory. With the critical race theory, they don't want to be reminded, the ones that are promoting critical race theory, they don't want to be reminded that it was their leaders within Africa that actually sold their people to the white people during this whole slave trade. They don't want to be reminded, the ones that are pushing critical race theory, that blacks in the United States have more opportunity than they've ever had, ever. But they are trying to push Congress slowly, but push Congress for reparations. And they're attacking it at both ends. They're attacking it at the federal level, and they're attacking it at the state level. If you think I'm wrong, look at what California is trying to do with promoting CRT and reparations. This issue that is starting to take hold is about DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is another term for affirmative action. All those presidents that were being drilled at Congress the other day, they're all DEIs. And if these incidences were flipped around, where it was actually the student body saying things to Black students, you would see so many cities being burned down. You don't see Jews burning down the town, but you'll see people that are pushing BLM burning down the town. You'll see people burning down the town pushing the Palestinian cause. The reality of the situation is when people are saying, "Oh, it's some sort of cabal, and it's this Zionist cabal, that the Jews are perpetrating," they don't understand what Zionism is. Zionism is basically a watering down of the Jewish faith. Gotten to such a point where you had ultra liberals destroying the country of Israel. It's the same thing that's going to happen in the United States. Ultra liberals are going to destroy the United States. And there's no one that is forceful and pushing against that trend. And it's being promoted in these schools. It just so happens that the Jewish people are the bellwether for what is coming with CRT. That's what's happening, at least in the United States.
The university, they could not prevent that from happening. And I, as Hannah, am not asking them to prevent that from happening. What I'm asking is that when crimes like these occur that affect Jewish students, I ask that they follow the policy in place. And for both of these cases, Jewish students to file the police reports with UCPD. In both of those two cases, my understanding is that the university is not investigating those as hate crimes. So again, it's one thing to declare it a hate crime. It's another not to even investigate it as such. And I'm an MBA. I'm not a lawyer. I have, though, quite extensively read different policies to understand when this happens, what is the university supposed to do? How are they supposed to respond? And it appears that the information and facts provided to these two Jewish students is not consistent with what I'm reading. And it's because of that inconsistency that I feel confident saying, I'm wondering if there's discrimination at Berkeley against Jews, and I want to do something about it.
I remember, here's another, Dr. Paul Cottrell moment, all right? Behind the scenes kind of stuff, all right? That once in a while I'll, expound upon on my videos and my simulcast with Spaces. I was at Fordham for my pre-med, all right? And I remember we had to take a sociology class, all right? And Fordham is a conservative university. Fordham University in New York is very conservative, right? It's a Jesuit school. You would think, I call it the little Harvard because there's a lot of similarities between Fordham and Harvard, but it's the little Harvard, right, in New York. And it's a very good school, all right? I enjoyed my time at Fordham, but I remember being in, I've always been a conservative type person. I'm not a liberal at all, and I think that's obvious. We're in this sociology class, and the teacher was a super liberal, didn't have any kids, and just you can tell that they're mega liberal. And then even in her office, because she was tenured professor, even in her office, she on the door of her office, was all this kind of like liberal agenda cutouts from the paper and cartoons, and I don't know. I found it very unprofessional. I thought it was unprofessional. But what's more important is that there were a lot of students in there that were pre-med, right? And I would say a lot of pre-med students at that time, at least through my experience, especially at Fordham, were conservative individuals, all right? And they were a little bit more older crowd, right? You know, most of them were in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. There were some students that were younger that had to take the class for their a general requirement, all right, that weren't in pre-med. Some of them were, you know, going to be lawyers, so they were, finishing their undergrad, and they had to take a general requirement, and that was one of their general requirements. So this sociology class, uh, for some odd reason, I don't know why, but there seemed to be a lot of people that came from the dancing industry in New York. You know, like ballet. There are a lot of like ballet, professional ballet types that are at Fordham, but they're getting ready to retire from their ballet. So they're in their mid-20s, and they're in pre-med. All right. So we had a couple of these ballet types in class, two females. One of them was really, really nice and open minded. She happened to be Jewish, actually. And then there was this other one that happened to be Jewish that came from Berkeley. All right. And this is where the whole Berkeley thing comes in. And she was super fucking liberal. So super fucking liberal. And of course, you know, in the sociology class, we touched on, topics like, there's no difference between males and females. Now you got a lot of pre-meds in there, right? And we're just getting, ready to apply for medical school. So we already have quite a bit of science background, right? There is so many differences between males and females just at the biological level, right? Obviously a male, right, can't have a child, just that alone. I mean, so not everything a female can do, a male can do, and vice versa. So there are differences biologically. And then you can get into the details of the hormonal levels and the karyotyping and all. I mean, there's just so many different things. Not only that, you're starting to see that a top female athlete cannot perform at the same level as a top male athlete. So even our bone structures and our muscle masses are different, especially at the elite level. Right. So we are different. So there was this big debate. And of course, the ultra liberal Berkeley bitch that was retiring from ballet, right? Was just so, I don't believe that. That's, a female could do anything, anything, and, there's no differences between males and females. And so there was this big debate, right? And then we touched on issues like the BLM, this, Black Lives Matter thing. And we had some Black students in our class. And I remember making the statement to the Black student in the class. It's like, you're so worried about the Black student, you're so worried about the Blacks in the United States and quote the atrocities of whites on Blacks, but you didn't mention anything about the atrocities of Blacks on Blacks in Africa and the genocide that's happening in Africa on a daily basis. That's happening even today. So these people aren't informed. But going back to the Berkeley bitch, so she was, she's Jewish. And I, said, here's the problem. You don't follow the precepts of the Torah. And because of that, society starts to falter. If you start cracking the family unit, which is the building block of society, don't be surprised that society starts to spiral out of control. And so she got all upset, how dare you use my religion against me and all this stuff, right? And I'm like going, I'm Jewish, and I follow the precepts and I don't have any problems. But it seems like you ultra liberals seem to have an awful lot of problems, with conservative people. And here it comes back to the CRT point that I was making. CRT is designed to be a deconstruction mechanism of the United States. And oh, by the way, there are going to be a very small percentage of people that are going to be getting new bennies, new benefits like reparations. Can you imagine, you know, somehow, some way, the federal or state government decides to give $50,000 to all the blacks because of white atrocities in the past? Meanwhile, we have some American citizens that actually their ancestors fought in the Civil War on the Union side, which helped to allow for blacks to be free. What about that? You know, the problem here is that there are ultra liberal schools. Now, Berkeley is like right at the top, right? Probably is the top, but you're seeing it in, you know, these very elite schools, Yale, Harvard, UPenn, and now, you know, it's even MIT. So, you know, there's that little behind the scenes moment, you know, with the Berkeley bitch, you know, Jewish, you know, super liberal, but doesn't follow anything, you know, and thinks that they know it all. They thinks that they really know how the world should be. You know, that's my take on it. You know, there is a CRT thing going on, and Jewish people are thrown into the category as just in the white group. In the white group, male and female, especially white males, are going to be targeted by CRT. So there's this, you know, the logic. The logic is going to eventually eat itself, but there's going to be, you know, an attack. These liberals are going to be attacking certain groups, but the logic will eat themselves. I mean, I think what played out in Congress is the ultra liberal eating its own tail. The way the presidents answered the questions, the fallacy of their logics on how they're handling these sorts of problems are starting to come to the surface, and people are seeing. Now, the alumni groups are putting pressure on these universities, you know, saying, step down, President Gay, step down. You're a DEI candidate, and you know, obviously you don't have leadership skills. Step down. Oh, by the way, she happened to be the dean of the biggest department in Harvard before she was elevated to president. So for years, she was bringing on staff members, professors, adjunct professors, for years that had a liberal agenda. So it's not just following a code of conduct because, you know, some sort of manual that they have on some sort of, you know, new event that took place on campus, AKA anti-Semitism all over the campus. She was a dean of the largest department at Harvard, the most powerful department in Harvard, underneath the corporation, because there's Harvard Corporation, then Harvard University, and then you have the different departments. She was the dean of the most powerful department for years. And she has been an enabler of this CRT bullshit. All right. With that said, you know, hopefully the Berkeley bitches watch. All right. Now what I want to see, I want to play Alan Dershowitz's, not on his show, because he has the Dershowitz show with Alan. I don't want to see that one. There was let's play News Nation here while I find the Alan Dershowitz one.
What does it take to be a Shenyun dancer?
My dancing.
It takes a mind.
It's as if they're listening
and
to
lives.
my conversation. It's amazing.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context.
Ivy League universities across the country in hot water tonight following that congressional hearing on anti-Semitism this week. Jewish students have reported an uptick in anti-Semitic rhetoric on campuses nationwide, and now lawmakers are working to hold university administrators accountable. In the wake of controversial testimony from Ivy League presidents, 2 UPenn higher-ups stepped down, including the president, from their roles this weekend. And now calls are mounting for the presidents of MIT and Harvard to follow suit. News Nation correspondent Ryan Bass has the very latest on what lawmakers want to see from these top universities. Ryan?
It's bipartisan at this point, Natasha. Both sides of the aisle of lawmakers, they want leadership changes at these Ivy League institutions and a proposed plan on how these schools are going to better protect students and teachers moving forward from anti-Semitic attacks on
It's
campus.
not
But not
just the
everyone.
anti-Semitic attacks. It's about the CRT encroachment that keeps on growing and how these universities are just literally they are kicking out these liberal students that are socialists or communists. They want to destroy the Constitution, destroy the family unit, push CRT, have this gender fluidity. A kid that's 2 years old, keep them, in a state of unknown. So when they get a little bit older, they can do gender reassignment. And it's the parents that are projecting that on the student. When the kid comes out of the womb, it's not like that. It's very rare to have genetic disorders where there is ambiguity, for the actual genitalia, and and there's issues hormonally. That's rare. A lot of these cases are psychological cases. Some of them are related actually to the years of ingestion of all these GMO foods, and affecting the hormonal levels. So there are 2 force factors that are happening to these kids. All right. There's this psychological force factor by society and their liberal parents. And then this other force factor of poisoning the food supply. But there are rare cases where it's like an XXY. If you're an XXY, right, for karyotype, well, you're going to be more on the female side than the male side. All right. And there are XOs, and and there's things can go wrong with the karyotype that causes some issues, but they're not that common. Not as prevalent as it's being projected in the mainstream media. So not only destroying the family unit, they're literally destroying the biology of the child. And don't forget all the 60 million abortions since the 1970s in the United States. So, all right, I went on a tangent. But it's not just anti-Semitism. It's about this push by the liberal crowd, the liberal professors, these liberal schools, these liberal donors. They're pushing an agenda. Now it's the conservatives that are going to have to push back. All right. Now, maybe some of these big donors had no idea how bad it was. And maybe they're waking up to it. But it's not just anti-Semitism. It's going to be anti-Catholicism. It's going to be anti-white. It's going to be anti-male. It's going to be pro-black. There's the problem.
Is calling for Harvard's president to step aside. Some colleagues have even come to her defense, saying Harvard and she should not cave to public pressure.
We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable.
You and I both know that's not the case.
Here's the
One day
problem.
after University of
problem. Here's the problem. All right. And you got to remember, we had presidents coming from Harvard. We had presidents that actually signed the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that came from Harvard. And now you have an institution that is literally trying to destroy those 2 documents. Slowly. when you're in class and another student comes into the class that has not registered for the class, that disrupts it and starts yelling, pro-Palestinian, rhetoric and disrupting the class, or some BLM thing. The students aren't going to be held accountable that are disrupting the class. Harvard should have a policy that you can't disrupt the class, because those students are paying for those classes. Now, if it's a debate class, or if it's an international affairs class or a government class, and there is rigorous debate within the class, such as what we were having in the sociology class at Fordham, then that's okay, because that's freedom of expression, and as long as it's not physical harm or anything like that. But freedom of expression in that kind of setting is allowable. Now take it out of the classroom, which is a lot of what's happening on Harvard. Harvard can make a policy. You can express your views in a political debate, that's sanctioned, or that it's in a hall, and there's students that pay tickets or get tickets or whatever, and there's a debate. There's that kind of freedom of expression. There's the freedom of expression in some sort of a government class or something like that. But the freedom of expression actually in the halls, or in the on the steps of the library, or in the yard, where it causes concern for certain groups to walk by, and they're concerned with their safety, that's a problem. If you try to do something nefarious in the yard, meaning the Harvard yard, so if you try to do something nefarious in the Harvard yard, in about 30 to 60 seconds, there's going to be a security guard stopping it, because it's well monitored. So when they start trying to deface some of these buildings, and they put up posters that are pro-Palestinian, that means the security guard allowed them to do it, because that security guard knew that they were doing that like in 30 seconds. So you have this problem in the university that are promoting this. That shouldn't be free speech. The university should be, that if you want to have these kinds of conversations, take it off campus. If you want to have a debate in a classroom that's tied to that class activity, that's fine. If you want to have a whole debate that's been, that has been sanctioned, fine. But this organic crap that's happening all over the yard, or all over the library, or in the halls of different buildings, no, that shouldn't be. The school can say, we're going to shut that down. You're going to have freedom of speech, but we're not going to create this environment that could get out of control. But what it is that they're pushing the CRT agenda. I mean, you're seeing these people that are coming into the Harvard clubs now. They're just graduating. They are liberal. They are super liberal. Now they're trying to get on these subcommittees that are at these clubs, right? And they're trying to manipulate their needs and wants through what we call the SIGs. SIGs are special interest groups within the club, and they're infiltrating the SIGs, and they're trying to get on the committees. And you're seeing this kind of push of this wokeism. It's a problem. It really is a problem. This president allows for this to happen. It's a hotbed for liberalism.
Pennsylvania President Liz McGill resigned over intense backlash following this week's congressional hearing. Pressure is on Harvard's president to do the same. Harvard's Board of Trustees met on campus Sunday, 5 days after President Claudine Gay's combative testimony.
Every single fucking day until this president steps down, every single fucking day that I'm at the Harvard Club, I am gonna say negative things about this woman in terms of her leadership skills, in terms of, you know, a out of control CRT agenda at Harvard. And I happen to have a mouth, and I happen to know a lot of people. I am predicting. Now, I made the prediction like 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I think it was a Friday when I did the video. I made a prediction that in less than 36 months, she is going to resign. It may be a lot quicker, which surprises me. That surprises me, how quick this might be. But she's being put on notice. Now, I think how it's going to play out is this. At the year end, donors, because you got to remember how these universities work. They look at two big metrics. One big metric is year-end donations, and the other is the closeout of the portfolio. How did the portfolio perform for the Harvard Corporation? Those are the two most important things in their mind. All right. Now, it's possible that the portfolio, the way they position, might not perform as well as they budgeted. But that still has to be seen because we haven't finished the year yet. Donors are pledging less, and what they did pledge may be rescinded. So the budget for the donations is probably going to be down. That will be that she'll use the excuse, well, this is an event that, you know, hurt the budget, and just give me another chance. Let me prove myself in 2024. All right, year end. And what will happen is that there's going to be if she still stays on and she doesn't perform, and there's not a ground swelling, most likely there will be a ground swelling of alumnus that are like myself that want her gone, either fired or resign. Most likely she'll resign. If she doesn't perform, then she's either going to be kicked out, at year end 2024, right? Or they'll give her one more chance, in that if it looks like that she's not performing by the second half of 2025, then they're going to start looking for another president. That's how I thought it was going to play out. But there may be such a groundswell of activity that they may be forcing her out much quicker. Now, I had a conversation with Miss Taiwan. Now, people that have been following my channel, they know very well who Miss Taiwan is. She guessed, as we were talking about the crisis that we went through in 2020, and she has a unique perspective. And I put her on the show because she's funny, and she, she's anti-China, she's pro-Taiwan, and she just, she's a person that, is opinionated, all right? And, it's important to have these kinds of opinionated people because it's kind of funny, but it's also, they have a good point if you really pay attention to them. So Miss Taiwan, was saying, watch out for the government coming in and doing audits. There are funds that are provided to Harvard. All right. Even though it's a private college, there's a lot that's going on. The problem is there's a lot of CIA activity that goes on at Harvard too. All right. A lot of government officials flow through Harvard, through the Kennedy School. All right. They have officers coming through the military. There are a lot of military people that come through Harvard. They have the ROTC, section of Harvard that was rebooted. So there's a lot of government activity within Harvard. But the government can come in and say, you are pushing an agenda that we don't want you to be pushing. And they could put pressure on the university through audits. And they'll start to notice that, oh, you know what? There's some weird things going on with the way you're getting funding, like from the Middle East and from China and the 1,000 Talent Program. You know, so there are nefarious things that are going on that can come to the surface, and people know where the dead bodies are. Now I'm going to play, hopefully it's in this video that I saw with Alan Dershowitz, where he talks about he knows where the dead bodies are. So this issue is not just about anti-Semitism, but the corruption within these universities, especially Harvard. And so this whole thing could blow up really fast. And so the corporation and the board of trustees is worried about the audit, the government audit, and not so much about, you know, the world in general and how they view the president following policies and procedures. So I think that Miss Taiwan might be right, you know, that, and I didn't see that on Friday. I didn't think about the auditing aspect. And it could come through, you know, it'll be used, that audit could be used as a bargaining chip to kick her out. And so it may accelerate. Now, Miss Taiwan thinks it's going to be less than 36 days, not 36 months. I was a little bit more, you know, political. I think that there was, you know, a political game that was going on because she's a Black woman, she's a DEI candidate. She's new on the job. You know, she just took the job in the summer, you know, when the cow stepped down. So she's relatively new on this. But it may accelerate. So I'm not sure, you know, 36 days seems a little too quick. But it could be before 36 months, but we'll see. Maybe Miss Taiwan is right. We'll see.
Failed to stand up to anti-Semitism on campus.
We embrace a commitment to free expression, even of views that are objectionable, offensive, hateful.
Harvard ranks the lowest when it comes to protecting Jewish students. This is why I've called for your resignation, and your testimony today, not being able to answer with moral clarity, speaks volumes.
Now, what is awesome about she's from New York. She happened to go to Harvard College, so you know she knows the drill over there. And this problem goes all the way back to the Vietnam era, with all these protests and these liberal professors that were promoting a liberal student body, that eventually some of these students end up being faculty members at these schools, pushing another liberal agenda, and it feeds on itself.
Gay and MIT President Dr. Sally Kornbluth to follow McGill and step down, posting on X, quote, "One down, two to go." This is only the very beginning of addressing the pervasive rot of anti-Semitism that has destroyed the most prestigious higher education institutions in America. She went on to say, Harvard and MIT, do the right thing. The world is watching. A bipartisan group of more than 70 lawmakers penned a letter on Friday.
Now, just remember, MIT, Harvard's tied to the CIA, MIT's tied to DARPA, a lot of government funding. A lot of, you know, skeletons in the closet. This thing's going to blow up. I think Miss Taiwan's right about this. This thing's going to blow up much more than just anti-Semitism. And these board of trustees and the Harvard Corporation, they're afraid of that. They're afraid of some of these closets being open.
And asking them to make a leadership change, saying that's the only solution to, quote, ensure that Jewish and Israeli students, teachers, and faculty are safe on your campuses. MIT's governing board released a statement the day prior declaring their full and unreserved support for President Kornbluth. And some Harvard faculty members are coming to Dr. Gay's defense too, with law professor Ben Adelson saying he was, quote, dismayed by Liz McGill's resignation. And I so hope that Claudine Gay and Harvard will not follow. I fear too few of us have said what many of us think. She did nothing wrong. And the real failure of leadership would be surrendering to
leadership would be surrendering to the public pressure. What about the real failure of leadership to really answer a question using common sense and not hiding behind a bunch of fucking lawyers? President Gay.
campaign so hostile to our values.
I've heard that thoughtless, reckless, and hateful language on our campus. I will say again, that type of hateful speech is personally abhorrent to me.
Personally, but
Apparently,
she uses the code of conduct for students as a way to hide and not punish these students. Because they went right to the edge. In most cases, not all cases, but most cases, they went right to the edge where it wasn't focused on an individual. It was more of a group. And you can hide and say whatever you want if you're just focused on a group. But if you say Mary, the Jew, needs to be killed, right? That would be considered against the policy. So what she personally thinks doesn't translate into the actual code of conduct. And she's a leader. And if she personally thinks it's abhorrent, then maybe you should rewrite the rules and regulations. Oh, Harvard's really worried about lawsuits. Oh, it's all about navigating this through a litigious lens instead of doing the right thing and just using some common sense and having some moral backbone. And you get moral backbone a lot of times, not always, but most of the time, through the way you were raised by your parents and realizing that we are eventually going to be judged by a higher power. So there's a religious component to it. Obviously, we're not seeing a whole lot of moral backbone coming out of these universities when they're destroying the family unit and destroying religion. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be some sort of like super, orthodox individual. But where the United States is at this moment in time, in terms of religiousness and in terms of family unit, it's terrible. It's terrible. You look in New York and in California and look at all these 35, 40-year-old women that are all sad because they believed in a bullshit lie. Be that corporate woman and, look for the perfect guy. And eventually, time is ticking and then all of a sudden her eggs dry up. And she's so sad that she believed in a lie. And then there are years of, going to a therapist because she believed in the woke lie. Now, maybe some people think I'm speaking in hyperbole, but you know what? You see it all the time in New York. There's a reason why there's so many females in New York that are unmarried, have no kids, and look sad. Because they thought that they were going to be, one of the actresses in Sex and the City.
Widespread support for Dr. Gay to keep her job here, Natasha. Harvard's on-campus newspaper reporting that more than 350 faculty members actually signed a letter Sunday that was addressed to the school's top governing body, urging them to resist calls to remove Dr. Gay as president of the university.
360 faculty members. How many of them were liberal? Oh, 359. Pushing CRT.
Came on Friday where she reversed course from that testimony, apologizing and saying that her words matter. Natasha, we'll see if this governing board does in fact cave to public pressure and decide to force her to resign. But as of now, she still has her job. Natasha.
Okay, Ryan Bass with that live report for us tonight. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Like
to
I
find
said,
News Nation.
like I said, Harvard Corporation only cares about two things. What, compared to the budget, what did the donations come in at year end? And how did the portfolio perform relative to budget? That's what they care about. And if those two things aren't coming around, now she can't control the performance of the budget or the performance of the portfolio. She isn't in control of that, but she is heavily in control of the donations. And if that thing is below budget, they are going to push her out. That's the only thing they care about. They don't care about all this happy-go-lucky bullshit. And talking about bias of sampling, well, we have so many faculty members that are backing President Gay, even though she's a complete imbecile, has zero leadership skills, zero. She's smart. She's academic. But like I said in the previous video, you could be an academic and really smart and be a terrible leader. Or you could be a great leader and not have any formal education, such as George Washington. I'm pretty sure that George Washington would solve this problem really simply. And oh, by the way, he actually wrote a little pamphlet while he was, I think when he was in the service, in the military, on code of conduct, on how to behave. All right, let's go to Alan Dershowitz. And this is I-24 News.
Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School. He joins us this evening from Miami, Florida. Professor Dershowitz, I asked you on this program more than a month ago about this issue when it came up with some incidents at Harvard. At that time, I recall you demanded that the
Let me, another Paul moment, all right? DrPaulCottrell moment. Alan, is compromised, right? So this is all going to play out really interesting. Epstein. All right, there we go.
president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, resigned. You were a little ahead of the curve, as it turned out, in this regard.
Well, and I wanted to resign, not so much because of what she said about free speech. I'm in favor of free speech. Let students say whatever they want. What I'm opposed to is the double standard. President Gay is part of this whole diversity, equity, inclusion nonsense bureaucracy that doesn't allow students to have free speech when it comes to criticizing other minorities and other groups. If you say anything suggestive of anything critical of blacks or gays or transgender people, you're going to be disciplined, or you can say anything you want about you. So it's not that I want to restrict free speech. I want more free.
One of the big things that were on campus, all right, during my, recent years, right, has been this term called microaggression. All right. And I'm sure the ones that are listening and watching, have heard this term either in their workplace or at school or, in the news, that just a little microaggression, and then all of a sudden, you may be disciplined as a student or be disciplined by HR at your work or whatever. You can't be there's no I'll tell you, one of the biggest microaggressions that are happening right now in the yard is this bullshit that's going on with this pro-Palestinian stuff.
Speech. I want a single standard to be applicable to all groups and not a double standard to be applied to Jews and their nation state.
Well, then let's look at what happened because Elizabeth McGill has resigned. There's a search committee that's going to be looking to replace her, but I haven't heard anything about committees to rework the university speech code either at U of Penn or Harvard or MIT as well. I mean, how likely do you think that process is likely to happen? How should it happen?
Well, it's more than the speech codes. It's the attitude of the universities. The attitudes of the universities are that there's a double standard. The DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, excludes Jews. It presents Jews as oppressors, and Jews are the villains, and the other groups are the victims. And so until that mindset is totally discredited, we're going to see more and more anti-Semitism. The DEI bureaucracy has been the hotbed of anti-Semitism, along with these special departments now, Department of, Black Studies, Women's Studies, Gay Studies. All of those departments have been at the forefront of the anti-Semitism at universities. So getting rid of a president here and there is not going to solve the problem. The problem is much, much deeper than that at American universities.
Right. Now, let's be realistic. President McGill's resignation was likely due in part from a major donor to the University of Pennsylvania saying he would withhold or withdraw a $100 million donation. You've had some very prominent donors to Harvard in the business community speak out in a similar way about it. How is much of that process going to impact on private universities? They're not subject to government oversight. So if any pressure is going to come, it's likely to come from those kind of figures.
So they are subject to government oversight because they receive government funding. For example, Harvard is being investigated by the Department of Education. I volunteered to be a whistleblower. I probably know more about the workings of Harvard than almost anybody else. I've been a professor there for 60 years. I know where all the bodies are buried. I know about the history of anti-Semitism that goes back to the 1910s. I know about how when I got to Harvard in 1964, nobody who was Jewish could be a dean or a president. They've had a double standard for years, and they are being investigated, and private donors have a role to play. Now, there are a group of professors now that are standing up and defending President Gay, saying that she's a hero of free speech. And I responded to that letter by the faculty saying it's not about restricting free speech. We want more free speech. We want the same standards to apply to every single group. We don't want one standard to apply to those who are regarded as oppressors and another standard to apply to those who are deemed to be oppressed. And so, because the students they're getting a good education, they're getting a lot of, a lot of prep education. It's just to apply to the university. All right. So they're smart students. The problem is they're not given morality because either it's not in the home or it's not through their education. All right. And so what happens is that now they're at these universities and they are empty shells that are just filled with the CRT crap. What needs to happen is that since morality isn't being taught at the home, morality needs to be taught at the school. If it's not going to be taught at the school, then what's going to happen is it's going to be forced inscription of these kids to do maybe 2 years of military service to get discipline. These students don't have discipline and build moral fiber about God, country, family. You ask a liberal person about God, yeah, that's so ancient. That's ancient. I'll tell you, I've seen it. Some of these people that are like really, really holy individuals in different religions, like Buddhism or Judaism or in Christianity, some of these really, really holy people, all right? They may not be the heads of the religion, but there are some of these people are super, super intelligent, right?
So this idea that religion just makes you stupid is just wrong. Now, there are people that are a little crazy, you know, and that's another topic of discussion. But there's, you know, but you have these kids that are like going, they're anti-God, they're anti-religion, they're anti-family, they're promoting abortion, they're promoting this failed policy that, you know what, be a career woman and then, you know, freeze your eggs, and when you find the right guy, then, you know, go have a child. You're, you know, 1.2 kids. I'm not sure how you get 0.2, but you know, that's the statistic. All right. That was a joke. But the point here is that they're being programmed to follow a certain thing that is very antithetical to God, country, and family. So maybe the school needs to give some discipline. And by giving them discipline, by basically saying, you know what, when you're walking through the yard, going from Seaver Hall to, you know, Massachusetts Hall, right? You're not protesting. You walk very nice. You don't look like a hoodlum. And you go to class peacefully. There needs to be discipline with these kids. Now, if you're in a debate class and you want to tell, some, I don't know, Berkeley bitch that she's just wrong, then that's okay. But there should be a time and a place for it, instead of this organic free-for-all that's happening on campus these days.
You know, this is a worldwide problem when we see today that a young woman who stands for the environmental movement has now basically put the environmental movement at war against Israel as well. Israel, one of the best environmental countries in the world, but the entire left, hard left, has declared war on Israel. As a great French philosopher today.
You will never find a liberal that will help with promoting God, country, and family. Even if their focus is on environmental, you throw in God, country, or family, and they will go apeshit.
On television said the tactics of Nazism from the hard right have now been transposed to the hard left. And so the problem is much, much deeper than the problem of who will be the president of any given university, or even whether the speech codes, which are generally written in very general terms, are applied fairly.
All right. I just want to briefly move on. Of course, you pined publicly about Israel on a number of issues. You did write a piece that was published, I believe it was in the New York Post this week, criticizing
I've also written a whole book.
And you've written a whole book there.
On October 7th, I wrote it in 35 days, War Against the Jews, how to end Hamas barbarism. I've written 20 op-eds since October 7th. You know, if I were a young man, I'd be volunteering to fight for the IDF. I'm now only old enough to write articles and write books and be on television, but I'm going to continue to defend Israel in the court of public opinion.
Right. Let me ask you about the
power to do it.
Right. One particular op-ed criticizing Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, who particularly a quote that he made that you can't win an urban warfare by the lesson is not that you can win an urban warfare by protecting civilians. The lesson is that you can only win an urban warfare by protecting civilians, seemingly to criticize how the IDF is conducting its operations in Gaza. I just want you to comment on that.
Well, he's just dead wrong. History proves the opposite. When the United States totally destroyed, Germany totally destroyed Japan, killed hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, the civilians ultimately thanked the United States and said, thank you for ridding us of these horrors of Nazism and of Imperial Japan. And I suspect the same thing might be true here. If Israel manages to rid Gaza of Hamas, I think it will be more likely to be accepted by the people of Hamas. But in any event, nobody is driving anybody today into Hamas's arms. Something like 70% of the civilians of Hamas have supported the barbarism of October 7th.
You have a lot of liberals that are saying Israel needs to cease fire, but it's kicking the can down the road. And it's not just Hamas, which is all he's talking about, Alan. It's also Hezbollah and Iran. You got to go full out war and kick ass and win. And then there's lasting peace. And then everyone's going to say, you know what? We enjoyed this lasting peace. Israel was right. And, let's be honest. When is an ultra liberal ever right on anything?
Numbers of innocent civilians in Gaza who were killed are a fraction of what's been put out in the media. There are many, many people who don't wear the green headdress, but they do help allow their houses to be used for tunnels and for rockets and for hiding combatants. These are not innocent people, and many of the people who were killed by rockets which misfired from Gaza. So we have to be careful about these phony statistics that are being put out. But the main point is that Israel can do the greatest favor to the people of Gaza if it makes sure that Hamas has no role to play in Gaza's future.
All right, Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you for joining us on I-24 News.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to now play Dr. Phil. He has a really actually heartfelt video that's about 6 minutes long. Now, before I play that, the market has opened up in New York, and the Dow is trading about 28 points higher. The S&P 500 is trading 1.3 points lower. S&P 500 is at 4,603. And if people want to know and how I think the market is going to play out, watch that video that I did on the fib sequences for the S&P 500. Now let's go to Dr. Phil's video. But before that, because this is PNN and I have to go to commercial, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the high quality supplements and products that I offer to help to improve your health. Go to the store and get the structural nano silver soaps. I have 5 different varieties. The one I have in my hand right now is the lemongrass, but this helps to neutralize pathogens. It's a very high quality soap. So please go to the store. It's a perfect idea for a gift item if you're looking for, some simple gifts for friends and family. Please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of all my videos. Also go to my store and get the structural nano silver gel. This will help to neutralize pathogens. You put it on your hands, it stays active for 5 hours. This is way better than Perel. Perel is toxic. Structural nano silver is not. And Perel, if you overuse it, will crack your hands. Structural nano silver gel will actually heal your hands. You can put it around your mouth, around your nose, around your ears, and in your ear canal. Lightly coat your nostrils and that ear canal around your eyes. It'll neutralize the pathogens, and you can also use this as a skincare. If you put it on a cut or an abrasion or a minor burn, first degree or second degree burn, it will help to heal that burn quicker and those abrasions. It can be also used for acne too. I also have a different version here that's in a quick dispenser. It's great as a product to carry in your bag or your backpack. Again, you apply it the exact same way as the other silver gel. This is the extra strength silver duck gel. This one with the container is 35 ppm, parts per million. The tube version is 24 parts per ppm. I also have a multivitamin. So please go to the store and get the multivitamins that I offer. It's easy to digest. You need multivitamins as cofactors for proper enzymatic activity. these enzymes, many enzymes have these sites that bind a cofactor to allow for the proper conformation for that enzyme to work properly. So please go to the store and get the vitamins that I offer. Let's play now Dr. Phil. And everyone that's watching and listening, this is PNN. Oh. There we go.
As an American, I grow increasingly appalled at the anti-Semitism permeating so much of our country, especially by so many students at our elite universities, which have become left liberal woke hotbeds, fostering intellectual rot rather than critical thinking, and tolerated or endorsed by their administrations. It has sadly spread to corporate America as well. This weaponized prejudice has never been more on display than when university presidents from Harvard, MIT, and University of Pennsylvania testified on Capitol Hill with sickening smugness and condescending to the panel with an arrogance and dismissiveness seldom seen in that forum. They were asked the simple question, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate your policy against bullying and harassment? To be 100% clear, using the dictionary definition of genocide, the question becomes, does calling for the deliberate killing of a large number of Jews with the aim of destroying the Jewish ethnic group and the nation of Israel violate your policy against bullying and harassment? University presidents Gay, McGill, and Kornbluth disgustingly evaded Representative Stefanik's questions. It depends on context.
The rules around bullying and harassment are quite specific. And if the context in which that language is used amounts to bullying and harassment, then we take action against it.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
The answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer. Yes, Ms. McGill.
Context.
Okay, I'll give you some context. While you were intellectually selling out, bringing shame to your institutions and this country, I was working with the Israeli consulate, viewing the highly restricted footage of October 7th. From actual body cams of terrorists themselves, victims' cell phones recovered from their dead, tortured, raped, desecrated bodies, as well as raw CCTV footage and other sources. Targets were all unarmed civilians, including men, women, children, and the elderly, hunted, tortured, raped, dismembered, beheaded, and executed without mercy. The sexual assaults perpetrated on the women and girls was so sick and twisted as to defy explanation. These were not acts of war. They were mass murdering cowards high on the drug Captagon while they celebrated and tallied up their kills like they were in a drunken bar game on a Saturday night. I was so sickened by video images I could never unsee of what was done to babies in cribs and young girls begging for their lives. I am changed forevermore. There is your context, ma'am.
This is why I said that you have to go all war and kill Ishmael and Esau. They're animals. They are fucking animals. And we were warned for thousands of years on what will need to happen. And the more you kick the can down the road, the worse it's going to get. It's time to get the job done. We're going to root out Hezbollah, Hamas, and fucking Iran.
Presidents, enough of what I witnessed is public, enough for you to know as you sat there smugly deflecting what had occurred. And you knew how traumatized those demonstrations were to your Jewish students who knew the demonstrators were calling for the same things to be done to them. You are leaders. You don't pick sides here. This is not about a territorial dispute. It's not about oppressors and the oppressed. It's not about religion or ideology. Any agenda that was on the table October 6th is forever gone. Conversation is over. How dare you sit there and play semantics with this congressional panel when you know what was done that day and what is being supported against your Jewish students? President Gay, you know they are stalking Jewish students on your campus, chanting shame, shame, shame as they impede their path to class. Yet you sanctimoniously tell Representative Kiley you could look Jewish parents in the eye and tell them their son or daughter would be safe and feel safe and welcome on your campus. No, President Gay, no, you cannot, and you know it. How much context would be required if these student organizations were demonstrating in support of genocide of all Asians, Catholics, Blacks, or gays? I'll tell you how much, none. And you know what? There should be done. All of these groups deserve protection and the right to attend school without fear, and so do the Jewish students. What is wrong with you people? You know better. Is the problem that Harvard and MIT and others receive hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign funding, including from China? Who do you answer to? And by the way, I have professionally prepared witnesses to testify before congressional committees, so I know what goes into it. You said what you said with intention. None of you got caught up. We didn't get confused. You were so rehearsed, you all sounded like parrots. Every single one of you must resign immediately. For the rest of us, it's clear. We've got issues. We've got issues in this country, but surely to God, we don't stand with homicidal maniacs. Because you support one side of a dispute does not mean you endorse everything they do. If Hamas behavior does not cross the line, then you don't have one. If your representative or senators are lined up with the values of these three university presidents, you need to get new ones. If they are big social warriors for women's rights, but all of a sudden lost their voice when the victims were Jews, you need to kick them to the curb. And you know who they are. As for me, I love and stand with my Jewish brothers and sisters. It's Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights. And by the end of Hanukkah, all 8 of these candles will be lit. These are orange in honor of red-headed hostages that have been taken. Ariel, who is 4 years old, and Kafir, who is 10 months old. We don't know what has happened to them. They're still missing, but we pray for their return. This menorah is a reminder that light always prevails over darkness and good over evil.
And backlash is growing following the recent congressional testimony by the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania regarding anti-Semitism on campus. A major donor at Penn says the current president is not standing up to anti-Semitism, and he is threatening to withhold a $100 million donation unless the president steps down. This as the president at Harvard now says she failed to properly denounce threats of violence against Jewish students. Yesterday, just one day after the Capitol Hill testimony, a rabbi and visiting scholar at Harvard's Divinity School announced his resignation from its anti-Semitism advisory board. Rabbi David Wolpe, writing in part on X, the painfully inadequate testimony reinforced the idea that I cannot make the sort of difference I had hoped. Joining us now is Rabbi David
there's a
Wolpe.
little bit of a backstory here with him. He was he's a prominent rabbi. I think probably modern Orthodox, maybe even conservative. He may have even dropped into the conservative category. He used to debate Hitchens, and it's fascinating. His, I think it's Y92 debates with Hitchens, when Hitchens was promoting his book, God is Not Great, right? And then Hitchens starts to get cancer, and then he he's dying, and then he eventually died in 2011. But around that time period, this rabbi, I believe it was brain cancer. He was recovering from brain cancer. So he's a prominent figure, and he's an interesting figure to listen to. I think he's middle of the road, and you can appreciate his perspective. So just listen to what he has to say. He's aged quite a bit since those debates. I mean, obviously because recovered from cancer, but.
Nick Fellow for the Anti-Defamation League. Rabbi, thanks for being here and happy Hanukkah. We know the obvious reasons, but tell us more about why you resigned from your position at Harvard.
So I'm still a visiting scholar at Harvard. I resigned from the Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission. And the reason that I did that was because it seemed clear to me that I was not going to be able to push forward the kinds of changes that I think not only Harvard, but a lot of the elite universities so desperately need in order to reverse what I see as both an intellectual and a cultural decline.
Harvard President Claudine Gay apologized today for her remarks on Capitol Hill earlier this week. I want to get your reaction to this exchange she had with New York Representative Elise Stefanik.
Do you know what the #1 hate crime in America is?
I know that over the last couple of months, there's been an alarming rise of anti-Semitism, which I understand is the critical topic that we are here to discuss.
That's correct. It is anti-Jewish hate crimes. And Harvard ranks the lowest when it comes to protecting Jewish students. This is why I've called for your resignation. And your testimony today, not being able to answer with moral clarity, speaks volumes. I yield back.
Rabbi, your reaction to that exchange?
So I want to say, I'm a rabbi. I don't decide who should or shouldn't run universities. I don't call for people's resignations. But my reaction to the exchange is sort of my reaction to the presidents of all the universities, which was that I would hope from any leader that you could muster indignation over the fact that students are in danger, that anti-Semitism is rising, and they may feel it, but they would have done themselves enormous good had they just pounded the table, had they said it is unacceptable and awful that there's a rise of anti-Semitism at the elite institutions of learning in America. And I won't stand for it as president, and I'm going to do everything I can to reverse. It's something that gave us a sense that there was an unwillingness to stand for what is clearly an absolutely intolerable situation. Unfortunately, there was a lot of, it seemed, lawyerly crafted language, which did not meet the moment.
Rabbi, what do you believe is at the root of why these prominent universities have been responding the way they have to these threats against Jewish students? In your resignation announcement, you said there is an ideology gripping many students and faculty that is, quote, intrinsically evil.
Yes, which is why I didn't say this person has done it or that person has done it. I think instead the idea that all human beings can be cleaved into an oppressor and oppressed class of whatever group they are is itself evil. Because that not only deprives people of individual agency, you don't judge people as images of God, as individuals, but also because it says this group has this characteristic and therefore does not deserve sympathy. And what happened on October 7th was that people saw Jews, Israelis being violated, murdered in the most horrible ways, and because they put them in a certain class of people, they had no sympathy for them. And that is inhuman and it's evil.
Real quick, before I let you go, have you heard from any Harvard officials since your resignation?
I have, actually, and I've spoken with the provost and a quick exchange with the president, and I think that they have been, on the whole, understanding of the reasons that I made the decision I did, and I just did a candle lighting with a bunch of Harvard students, and They were incredibly encouraging, and I'm really pleased to say very grateful.
Rob,
Leadership is rare. I remember back in the early days of 2020, where very few people were willing to take the risks that I took to inform the public of a major catastrophe that was emerging in terms of nefarious activity that was being conducted by the national security state, and how there was this joint development. Now, this video is not to go through that whole timeline. I have many videos that start the timeline in 1986 all the way, through the current day, and the full arc of that development, of that pathogen. But I have the characteristics of a leader. And those characteristics are this: you do things that have a moral fiber to try to help people. You may not get it right all the time, but there's always a blowback. And a lot of times people don't want to hear the truth, even though you're trying to help them. And leaders go through adversity. It was not easy to go and be that Paul Revere in the end of January of 2020, to warn the public of what was coming. Now, there's a lot of nuances as the whole story unraveled, and how it spread, and the treatments and the inoculations and all the problems that come around. But leaders see that there's a wrong that is happening, and they try to make it right. And they go through adversity. They go into the breach. No one during that crisis did what I did. But you'll put other people on a pedestal thinking they're a fucking hero. Like Malone, who is part of the problem. Like McCall, who's just trying to become a celebrity doc. Those aren't leaders. You think they're leaders. You'll follow them because they piecemeal stuff you want to hear. But where were they in the early days when this was all happening? That's leadership. Going through the adversity, knowing that there's going to be a lot of pushback. There's going to be a lot of people not supporting you. Knowing that they're going to have institutions going after your character, like Harvard, like the Crimson. Crimson didn't go after Malone. Crimson went after me, because I was trying to blow the whistle on fucking Lieber. That's leadership. And now we're in a time where we need more leaders to get us back to a middle ground in this country. And to have a stronger association of God, country, and family. That's leadership. Not hiding behind a bunch of fucking lawyers. Not hiding behind a paywall. Not hiding and admitting that they were part of a nefarious program. Oh, AKA Malone. Not hiding, trying to be a celebrity doc like McCall. and Dr. Drew, leaders go into the breach. Leaders don't test the water. Leaders follow because of a moral code. All right, we're going to do one more video here. Harvard president has
Show
to
your
leave.
daughter how much you love her with this beautiful
This was
gift.
on News Nation.
It says, to my daughter.
People have nowhere to go to get away from the toxic battle between right and left. There is no refuge for the reasonable. So we have to create one. And we begin tonight by debating what seems irrational to see how we get to reasonable by shining a light on one of these flashpoints of frustration. The debate over what is okay on campus. Let's bring in Mark Lamont Hill, professor, CUNY Graduate Center, host Al Jazeera English. Got his Ph.D.
No, I just want to, this is News Nation side, and this is Cuomo talking, right? Let's remember Cuomo. Remember when there were documents that were, being leaked to CNN when he was on CNN before he was pushed out? And he told the American public that because he's a journalist, he can read them, but the rest of the nation can't read them. Cuomo's a jackass. But I want to hear what is in the video.
Ben, this guy's got like 100 degrees, by the way. And Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus, author of War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. It's good to see you both. Happy Hanukkah, Professor Dershowitz. Good to see you. Mark, it's good to see you, brother. Professor Dershowitz, what happened in Congress with the president's not giving adequate answers, according to Congress, to questions they knew were coming means what to you?
Means that she can't any longer serve as president at Harvard by our own standards. When she was the dean of the faculty, she fired Ron Sullivan, who was the dean of one of the colleges, because he, for 1 month, represented Weinstein. And then she said he didn't satisfactorily explain and justify what he had done to the students. And she said a dean has to be more than just a teacher, has to be a pastor, and has to understand the fears of the students. And he was fired not because he did anything wrong, but because students were afraid under his deanship. Students are afraid under her presidency. They are terrified. Jewish students don't want to come to class. They don't think the university has done enough. And the time has come for her to acknowledge that. And by her own standards, by the standards she imposed on a dean, Dean Ron Sullivan, she has to leave.
Mark, we've talked about this before, and I do think you have to be careful not to make it seem like all the protests that are going on campuses are saying, kill the Jews or anything ugly like that. Overwhelmingly, it's about pro-Palestine. I don't see it even the way Professor Dershowitz does. There's certainly people who are way too forgiving of what Hamas did, but pro-Hamas, I think, is a very, very small fraction of what we're dealing with. And yet, Mark, isn't the standard always for these institutions that if people feel targeted, you treat them like they're being targeted and you protect them and you don't let those voices come on campus that threaten them and you go after students who seem to represent them, but not with the Jewish students? Why?
Yeah, I don't accept the premise there. I think that in the case of the congressional hearings, all three presidents were pretty vocal and articulate about saying that they will do everything they can to protect Jewish students, that they abhor anti-Semitism, and that they don't want anti-Semitic threats, anti-Semitic language, anti-Semitic actions to play out.
Do you think any of them would have answered the questions the same way if it was black or trans they were being asked about? I think they would have said, well, it depends. It depends.
Well, they didn't say it depends. That's a little bit.
They did say it depends.
It's context dependent.
Context matters. I have to look at the context. Context means it depends. Come on.
Right. No. But it depends would suggest to the audience that it was just arbitrary or capricious. I'm saying they were making a very specific historically informed argument that I'd like you to allow me to explain. On college campuses right now, there are Palestinian students, and Congresswoman Stefanik talked about this, who say intifada, intifada. For her, by screaming intifada during a protest, that is a march, that is a call for genocide. That was specifically what she was asking about. And I think as a university president, you have to balance, obviously, safety, but also you have to balance an environment of free speech. If people were walking through campus saying that Jews should be harmed, that Jewish people should have bad things happen to them, and people were trafficking in stereotypes or threats, I agree with you 1,000%. They should be gone. And they're in full stop. What they're talking about is not that. What they're talking about is a case where if I call for a one-state solution, someone could say, as Alan has said to me before, that's a demographic genocide to Jewish people. So if I call for a one-state solution, I'm calling for genocide. If I say intifada, I'm calling for genocide. If I say free Palestine from the river to the sea, it's genocide. And so if you, as a president, say, I won't allow any type of genocide call in the context, the specific context that she was talking about, you're also silencing free speech. It would be like if I said Blue Lives Matter to me as a Black person means that cops are going to kill Black people, and therefore, Chris, as university president, if you allow people to march and say Blue Lives Matter, you're allowing genocide marches. You say, well, that's not fair. It's a context thing.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com.
The bottom line is this: we need leaders at all different levels. We need leaders at the local level in our cities, and at our state and federal government, in our universities, in our churches, in our synagogues. We need leaders, not politicians, not people afraid, not people that are, placating to different groups. And we also have to realize, by being leaders, that you have to get the job done so a future generation doesn't have to go through the atrocities that may be even worse than what we're going through right now. That's leadership. And we need a society that is more disciplined. The kids are out of control. And by not having discipline, the society starts to spiral out of control. It is accentuated in New York. I mean, everything in New York is accentuated. The poor, the rich, the loud, the way you see how Blacks act on the street. This whole legalization of drugs that's literally going to hurt them mentally with dementia and schizophrenia. The drug culture and the hip hop and all this crap has created a corrosive environment in our cities. Leadership needs to basically say, enough is enough. Pull up your fucking pants, get some discipline, get educated, and be a productive citizen. And those are the ones that aren't going to Harvard. Then you have the ones that are going to Harvard and similar schools. They're out of control. And they're even more dangerous because they're smart. They're cunning. And they'll go into powerful positions in the future. Now, do you want these people to be in powerful positions that have a CRT mentality, or a person or a group of people that have leadership positions that have a strong affinity towards God, country, and family? It's that simple. It's that simple. Pull up the fucking pants. Stop buying into how the government is rewiring your brain, and push back against ultra-liberalism. That's leadership. Please go to my store and help support my work. I have many different products. I have this product here, which helps to boost up your immune system, lignans. It's a powder. It helps also with your hormonal levels for males and females. We're going through some trying times in terms of our biology because of the crisis that we went in, and we're going to need a boosted up immune system, long term and short term. So if you don't pay attention to me, it's through your own doing. I also have a product called magnesium and zinc. All right, that helps to boost up your immune system. We're going through something strange during the cold season. Better start paying attention to what I'm saying. Take a double dose of zinc and magnesium if you're sick. I have different types of lozenges. I have silver, structural nano silver lozenges in a 20 count in sweet menthol and green apple. I also have in 100 count honey lemon drops and in blueberry. So please get a few bags of those during the cold season. You're gonna need them, trust me, you're gonna need it. I have partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we have developed these deodorant bars that help to detoxify your body. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It's extremely high quality ingredients. So we have it in citrus and peppermint lavender tea tree. So this is for males and females. Use this deodorant bar every day, but it'll help to detoxify your body. We also have the everything bar, or the even better bar, it's called. The even better bar that is also made from essential oils from the Himalayas. And that bar can be used for muscle aches, cuts, abrasions, eczema, bug bites. It'll stop the itching, rashes, that kind of thing. And you apply it on your skin. If you want to apply it on your skin, you don't have any issue, and you just want to use it as a skincare product, you can do that also. And what will happen over a few days, you'll notice that your skin is starting to soften, and there's there are moisturizers that are through these essential oils that will help to soften and moisturize the skin. So please go to the store. I have very high quality products. It's all about following the protocol. Structural nano silver liquids and gels that helps to neutralize pathogens. The other pillar is a strong antioxidant like C60 to soak up those free radicals and then bring down inflammation by taking turmeric and ashwagandha. Turmeric will bring down that inflammation. It's also an antioxidant, but ashwagandha will bring down the inflammation by controlling your blood glucose levels. Those are the three pillars of the anti-aging protocol, and then you add stuff to it, like the lignans and the probiotic and the B complex and the vitamin D and the vitamin and the zinc and the magnesium and all these other products that I have. But the core is what I mentioned with the three pillars. Follow my lead. What I promote on the store is what I take. All right. And I've been, following this and tweaking this anti-aging protocol for a long time, going all the way back to 16 years old. People would say, why were you, taking all these antioxidants when you were 16? There is a strong family history of heart disease in my family. And unfortunately, my brother died from heart disease at age 36. And he had all the risk factors, and it's about controlling risk factors, but also, following protocol. And that protocol is really simple. And I just want to, from what I have seen and how I practice, my own health protocol, can help save you if you pay attention. It's about proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation, proper brain challenging, reading, writing, and talking to people in the real world, right? I've noticed that centenarians and even, ones in their 80s that are very vibrant, those individuals were prolific writers. So write, talk to people, Proper sleep is also an important feature. And I've gone into deep. I have actually a supplement called Goodnight Formula that has tryptophan and melatonin in it you can take every day. And what it'll do is it'll get you into the three REM cycles that you need to consolidate memory, to detoxify your body, and to get that well restedness that you need. And when all three of those are happening, you'll have better brain function and your immune system will be better. There's a theme. If you listen to me, it's about neutralizing certain things, bringing down pro-inflammatory cytokines, right? And boosting up the immune system. And when you have a boosted up immune system, you will age slower. Get rid of those free radicals by taking that C60, either an avocado or coconut oil. And you know, I have a 2 ounce, 4 ounce, and 8 ounce. But you know, it's a protocol that I've been following for a long time and have been tweaking it as different products come onto the market. But it works. It works. There are certain things I can't say, but I'm telling you, you follow my lead, and here again is a leadership role. Follow my lead, and you're gonna be better off. I'm not wrong on the things I cover. I've been telling people, pay attention to the S&P 500. We're going to test a new high on the S&P 500 by year end. And it's already approaching the 460 mark for SPY, which is the ETF for the S&P 500, non-leveraged. So, I'm not a one-trick pony, and I know quite a bit. All right, just follow my lead and learn. All right, and you'll be better off. So thank you for watching the video. Thank you for the ones that are on Spaces. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and please go to my channels. I have 3 YouTube channels on YouTube. I have 3 other channels. One's Brighteon, Bitchute, Rumble. So subscribe to all 6 of those channels, please, please. And ask your social network to follow. Because what I have to offer is really important, all right? And if you would like to help support my news coverage, please support my work by donating either on Stripe or PayPal. You can donate through the website at the very bottom of the homepage. You can donate through Stripe or PayPal. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee. Link is in the description of this video and all my videos. And please be a paid subscriber to my Patreon account. I keep everything for free for everybody. And that's because people support my work by buying the products and donating and being a paid member on Patreon. So please follow my work, get people to join this little network that we have, and pay attention to the tumultuous things that we're going to have. Nobody is going to be saying the things that I have been saying. All right, and it's really important. And I'm cutting edge. I know I'm cutting edge, but because I'm so cutting edge, people copy, and people try to ridicule and discredit. But the bottom line is, it's time that we have leaders, and not people that pussyfoot around. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.